Welcome to this episode of The Wisdom of Paramahansa Yogananda, brought to you by Self-Realization Fellowship, where each week you can receive inspiration and guidance from Paramahansa Yogananda's Kriya Yoga teachings. This talk is titled Achieving Spiritual and Material Success by Brother Achalananda.
The topic this evening is on achieving material and spiritual success. And looking around at all of you, I see people who exemplify that concept of success. You probably don't even realize how successful you are. There are billions of people on this planet now. Think of that, billions of people on this planet, but you are here. You could be somewhere else, but you aren't, you are here. Why are you here? Because you're successful. You have already learned some of the most important lessons in life. You're already striving and seeking to change yourselves to become a better person. Probably at some time in your life you have felt a keen desire to know God, or certainly have felt a desire to want to understand more about life. And because of that, you are here. You've probably wanted to be more successful in your relationships with your associates, with your family, your loved ones. And because of that, you are here. Because God and Guru are very definitely interested in you, each and every single one of you, in your lives and in your coming liberation. Because of that, you are here. So Divine Mother has told all of us, basically when she drew us to this path and to these divinely awakened gurus, she has told each one of us at that time, all right, my child, long enough now. You have been playing around in my creation. You have been enjoying it for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But now is the time to rise, master over that creation. Now is the time to be able to master oneself and return back to our true home, or if we wish to come back here to help others. And because of that, you are here. So it's a great pleasure to all of us to see you being here and to have the opportunity to be here with all of you. I want to start out by reading a short quote of Master's about success. You may say that life is ebbing away, and you are going to die anyway. So why try for success? I would answer as the Gita says, that at the moment of death, even 1 second before, if you can leave the body with a conviction that you are victorious in life, so shall it be. If you go with a conviction that you are with the Lord, so shall it be. Whatever thoughts predominate as a result of the way that you have lived your life, those thoughts determine your after-death state and the pattern of your next life. Can you remember that? There is no excuse to say that you are too old or otherwise unable to succeed materially and spiritually. We are never too old to improve, to succeed. Several years ago, we were back at that World Convocation, that World Parliament of Religions in Chicago, and we met there an elderly gentleman who had just come in contact with the SRF teachings. He was there with his wife and daughter. He was 95. And he said, "At last, I found it. It's been a long time, but I found it. And I'm going to make the best use of every moment that I still have left to practice these teachings." And he was quite active and still getting around, a real inspiration to come so late in the path and yet be so full of enthusiasm. So that kind of enthusiasm to succeed should be in each one of us. There is a force that we can call upon to give us both material and spiritual success. It is important to remember, however, that we are going to succeed in those areas in which we are interested. If we want to know God, then we have to develop a yearning to know God, a yearning that will keep us making effort as long as that effort is needed. If we want to succeed in any type of endeavor that we are taking on, that same yearning to succeed must be there. Yearning in itself, of course, is not enough. It must be followed up with practical efforts. That means we have to be able to grasp opportunities when they arrive. And we have to realize that right within each and every one of us, there are unlimited powers which we can call upon to assist us as we go through our lives. Those two unlimited powers are thought and will. The power of thought is tremendous, and will, when rightly used, is also a tremendous force. And when we combine these in our lives to make effort, then we can succeed. All too often, however, people defeat themselves. Stop and think a moment. What is your habitual trend of thought? Negative or positive? There are many people who spend their days in a negative frame of mind, a thinking that they cannot succeed, that they cannot accomplish, that they are not worth anything. If we have those kinds of negative thoughts, we must throw them out and replace them with positive thought patterns of success. Success or failure, then, is to a very great extent determined in our own minds. What we are going to do with our lives starts here in how we view life and what we decide, what kind of effort we decide to make in achieving our goals. Now, in one sense, our work can be called a success only when it helps also our fellow man, because we are all connected together. And to be a true success, we also have to have that interest in helping others. So this willpower can be used in many different ways. Some people use willpower very destructively. We don't want to use it that way. So when we go to use our willpower and to think out, to plan what we want to do, we should always want to use it for those things which are positive, not for anything which would be harmful for others or for useless acquisitions which we might spend a lot of time and energy trying to obtain. And once we have them, we realize that we basically just wasted a lot of time. Now, I went through something like that about 18 years ago. I'd seen an advertisement about some records that was sent to me, and they had a lot of different records. They were very cheap. They had some Indian devotional music. They had some bagpipes, all kinds of things, and I was intrigued by some, so I ordered about 6. I didn't have a record player. So I got them, and I realized, well, what am I going to do with them? So sometime after that, I saw an ad one Friday of one of these big chain stores, and they had a sale, and there was a record player. It was the low bottom of the line that they had, and they had it on even sale, so it was very, very reasonable. And I thought, man, there's my solution. I'll get that record player. And so I was determined to get it. So I arranged to go to their store in Hollywood, which was not too far away, about a 25-minute drive. I was able to get away on a Friday afternoon. I arrived there just before 4 o'clock. I'd called them several times. Their phone was always busy, so I didn't know if they had it there or not. I was in such a hurry, I parked in front on the street without realizing that street was marked off from 4 to 6, no parking, and that they had a parking lot right around behind. Ran in, finally got a hold of somebody, found out they didn't have the record player. He called up another store, found out they did. They reserved one for me. I came back out, and there on the car was a great big fat parking ticket. Well, that took a lot of the joy out. I almost didn't go down to the other store. I said, well, I've done so much, and I might as well go and get the stupid thing. So I drove another 45 minutes, got it, brought it back, played the records, put them on tape, and stored it away. Now I don't even know where it is. Now talk about a useless acquisition, that surely was one. And yet how often do each one of us spend time in those kinds of pursuits, don't we? Now this doesn't mean we can't enjoy life, don't misunderstand. But that we have to, if we are deeply seeking for success, materially, spiritually, whatever, one of the things we have to learn to do is to cut a lot of things out. The person who's going to succeed more or less gets focused, and a lot of other things have to go. And that is true for each one of us. I want to quote again something from Guruji on success. The power to attain success lies in your mind. You will realize this truth if you can hold to this conviction against the disbelief of the entire world. Take up some hobby or project that others think you cannot do, and then do it. Start with modest aims, and gradually your mind power will become more developed. The world and your family may label you in a certain way, but mentally, constantly work to change yourself for the better. There is no limit to the power of your mind. Concentrate on that thought. There is no limit to the power of your mind. Fill your mind with a resolution to accomplish and work toward your goal with positive factors, with positive actions. Keep driving the mind toward higher attainments. Acquire spiritual prosperity, and every other kind of prosperity will be yours. My life is a testimony to that. And certainly that is very true. Master came to this country with practically no money, knowing not a single soul, and look what he accomplished in one short lifetime. He stands as a stellar example to each one of us of the power of these teachings which he has brought to us, and that we can emulate him in practicing these teachings. So start with something small, but keep on making effort. This mind can create anything, even as God used his mind to create the cosmos and everything in it. And so if we cling to a thought with dynamic willpower, Master has said, then that thought will eventually take form, even if somebody has to create it for us. It will happen. Now, since thought is so powerful, we should always employ it in constructive ways. We should always use it in a positive way. Never think that you cannot change. Most people, the reason they do not change is really very simple. It's a matter of mental laziness. We're too lazy to change. It's too easy to go on just the way we are. We get stuck in ruts, and change implies pain and effort. It's very natural when we are changing that there's going to be some pain involved in that change. And so we tend to not want to be involved in that change. But that's a natural thing. And that should not discourage us from making the change. Because if we are changing for the better, along with the pain of change comes the joy of seeing that we are changing for the better, and that outweighs all pain. So let's quickly go over these 3 points which were brought out here. To make one's will more dynamic, take a simple task, some accomplishments which we thought we could not do, and then do it. Choose something constructive, and then refuse to consider failure. No matter if you don't make it at first, keep trying. Now, you know, small boys have a tendency, particularly when they're around the age of 5 and a few years around there, when they get out talking together, one of the things they like to do sometimes is get to bragging about their dads. To a small boy, their dad can do anything. And, you know, sometimes the dad has to realize that. Their boy thinks he can do anything. So there was 2 of these small boys, and they were bragging about their dads, what their dads could do. And pretty soon it escalated into, well, I guess you could say extremes. So the one little boy, as they were each one outdoing the other, he finally said, my dad can climb the highest mountain. He can swim the widest ocean. Why, he can fight a tiger with his bare hands. Why, he can... Yeah, but most of the time he just takes out the trash. Well, you know, that's not so bad, taking out the trash. There's a lot of trash we can all take out of our lives, isn't there? So concentrate on a single purpose and use all of our abilities to make that purpose go forward. Be sure in your calm inner self that what you want is right for you to have and in accord with God's purposes. So don't just go using your willpower and your thought to go charging off in useless directions. Make sure it's a good thing for you to have. Otherwise, sometimes the results, as we already mentioned, aren't quite what we expect or what we would like to have. There was a man who was quite wealthy in the material sense, and he was very devoted to his church. And for many years he went there, he tithed regularly, and he gave extra for special occasions. And this went on for year after year after year. Finally, as he and his wife were getting on up in years, his wife suddenly passed away. And facing this new situation, Sam thought, well, you know, for years I've been thinking of others, I've been helping others. I've only got a few years left. By George, I'm going to enjoy myself. So he decided to really do that, go for broke, as we say. So the first thing he did was he went out and he bought the very best toupee he could buy. Then he went to see the plastic surgeon. He took the works: tummy tuck, facelift, nose job, liposuction. I mean, we're talking about a new Sam here. He bought brand new dentures, the best he could buy, an expensive new wardrobe, a brand new expensive car. So finally he had it all together and he thought, okay, now my last few years, I'm going to really enjoy it. So he walked out the door, went to open up the door of his new car. Just as a car driven somewhat erratically came around the corner, the driver lost control and ran right into Sam. No Sam. So Sam's up at the pearly gates now. And he's looking there at St. Peter and he's somewhat miffed. And he said, how could you let this happen? How could you do this to me? Really, after all that I have done, after all the support I have given, how can you let this have happened to me? So poor St. Peter was a little embarrassed by all this, I mean, he's sort of shuffling his feet and finally looks up and he says, well, Sam, he said, to tell you the truth, we didn't recognize you. So let's keep those changes going for the better so we'll be recognized, okay? One of the greatest enemies of willpower is fear, because fear exhausts willpower. And we feel that we cannot accomplish anything. So one of the things to achieve success is everyone has to learn to rise above fear. You see that people who are successful can do that. The person who does not succeed is a person who's worried about always something going wrong. Again, it's a negative thought pattern. He thinks, if I try this, no, it won't succeed, something will go wrong. He's always afraid to try. You can never succeed in anything, be it spiritual or material, if you do not make an effort to succeed. We have to try. So even if we fail, so what? Every person who has become successful has failed many, many times. Each one of those failures teaches us something, if we will but learn from it. It teaches us where we went wrong and what we have to do to put it right, whether this be a failure in meditation or a failure in trying to succeed in a material way. If we fail, analyze that failure. Why did I fail? What went wrong? And then try to correct it. And if one fails again, correct it again. One very important man, Bill Watson, who was the founder of IBM, told a young writer who came to him one time and who was telling him about all of his failures, all his rejection slips. He said, every one of those rejection slips has something to tell you. He said, I'm going to give you a formula for success. Are you interested in it? And the young man said, yes, of course. And he said, double your failure rate. Keep trying, in other words. Don't give up. Make more effort. When people fail, that doesn't really mean much. But when people give up, that means a lot, because then we have said, I don't want to make any effort anymore. I don't want to try. I can't do it. We have pronounced the verdict of failure on ourselves, and no one else can do it. No one else can pronounce the verdict of failure upon us, save ourselves, when we give up and refuse to keep trying. So we have to keep making that kind of effort so that we can succeed. Reject the thought of failure. Not that you throw it out in a foolish way, but that you say, okay, so I failed at that one. I learned from it. I move on. And keep on trying. While we are doing this, while we are making this effort, Master said we have to learn to become very positive in our thought processes while we are making both spiritual and material effort to succeed. He said, learn to transfer your attention from failure to success. Every time you fail, make new successful efforts to succeed. Take your attention away from the failure once you've analyzed it and put it on further success. Transfer your attention from worries to calmness, because fear keeps us from success. And worry is nothing but a mild form of fear. Learn to throw out worries and put your mind again on a positive thought that you can do it, and convince yourself of that. And one of the best ways, of course, is through meditation. And so Guruji therefore says, transfer your thoughts from mental wanderings to concentration. And he has given us a technique specifically to do this in Hong Sa. There is the perfect technique to learn to transform our attention from mental wanderings to concentration, from restlessness to peace. People often think that they are so restless that they can't accomplish anything. They don't want to try to meditate because they say, oh, I'm too restless to meditate. No one is too restless to meditate. Every one of us who have tried to meditate in the beginning has been restless, probably. I know I certainly was. I couldn't sit still for 10 minutes when I first started to meditate. But as you keep on trying, you can increase that, and you can learn to concentrate more. And then finally translate that attention from that inner peace which you begin to feel in meditation to that divine bliss right within. When we're able to do that, then the purpose of our life will have been gloriously fulfilled, because we will have attained that state where we have come in contact with God. And we will therefore know the truth of this life and what it is necessary for us to attain in it. So self-analysis is necessary for us to progress. Introspection is a mirror in which you can hold up before yourself to see how you are doing. We often fail to do this because we don't like what we see. We hold that thing up there and say, whoa, wow, wait a minute. I don't like that. That's painful. But those things we see are exactly the things we have to overcome to succeed. And so we should not be afraid to take a good hard look at that mirror of introspection, and an honest look. And we should not allow it to make us feel that we can't do it if what we see is somewhat unpleasant. Rather think, no, okay, I see what I have to overcome now. Let me work on that. And start working on it then. Start taking a positive attitude and always throwing that negative thing out. You have willpower. You have the power of thought. You have the power of initiative. A tremendous creative power that comes from God. Learn to use these powers instead of letting them lie dormant. The more we meditate, the more these powers will begin to manifest themselves in our lives, in each and every single one of us. These powers are not something that we have to obtain. They are right there within us, waiting for us to draw them out, to put them to use. But we have to make the effort to draw them out and put them to use. No one else can do that for us. We must make that effort. That's our part. So don't let your habitual patterns of thought processes or any other types of negative habits hold you back. Habits can be very negative and really work against us. But habit is also good for us when rightly used. Create positive habits of meditation, for instance. Create positive habits of always doing your best, even when it's uncomfortable to do so. Make that an habitual part of your life, and then you will see it will change. We seldom realize, as Guruji has pointed out, just how much our lives are controlled by everyday habits. He pointed out that it was not our brilliant ideas or passing inspiration so much as our plain, everyday habits of thought and actions that control our lives. And I imagine every one of us comes up with certain negative habits as we grow up. And many times we have to get rid of those to keep progressing. There was a man who took his young son, Matthew, to the circus. And he took him there early, and they were putting up the tent and using the elephants. If you've ever been to the circus, they raise the tent using the elephants. And these elephants pull up this huge tent and these stakes and lift this huge tent. And it's obvious they're pretty strong. And the young boy, Matthew, was very impressed by this. So after the tent was up, then later on, they went to go to the show. And as they were walking along, here were all these big, huge elephants standing in a row where they'd been staked down. And the chain holding them was not very big, and the stake was pretty small. And the little boy looked at his father and he said, "Dad, why don't those elephants just pull up that stake and walk away?" Have you ever wondered that? You know, I only went to a circus once. My dad took me to a circus once. I think I was about 10 or 11. And I remembered that very same thing. Seeing those elephants, big elephants with just a small chain and this little stake pounding the ground, there they were standing. And I remember thinking the same thing. I wonder why they don't just walk away from that thing. You know why they don't? Habit. When those elephants are young, they are chained with a big chain to a stake made of metal that is really in the ground. And they try to pull loose, and they find they can't do it. They cannot break the chain. They cannot pull up the stake. So they keep trying for some period of time, and finally, they give up. So now you stake them, and whenever they see that stake and that chain, they figure, okay, no use. I'm stuck here, and all they'd have to do is walk off, and they'd be free. How many of us are the same way? We got some little habit we've had, and we think we're chained there to that unbreakable habit, and we can't get free from it. Hey, we're growing up. We have what we need to become free. Walk away from it. Pull it out. We can all do that. It's merely a matter of making the effort. These self-imposed restrictions, we do not have to accept. Break the habit pattern. Break the thought pattern by positive affirmations. Master has certainly given us plenty of those. So every one of us faces in daily life a struggle for life. It goes on and on and on. There's good and evil at war in this world and always will be, because they are at war in creation. Evil urges us to do the things that we know we should not do. We have a conscience. We know when we should not do it. Good urges us to do those things which we know we should do, but which are often difficult and require some effort on our part, or require us to go out of our way or do something else. In other words, are inconvenient. You'd be amazed at how many times we pass up doing some positive good thing just because it's inconvenient. It's a fact. So through daily difficult lessons, we will sometimes see that bad habits nourish unending material desires which keep us tied to this world, and that good habits nourish spiritual aspirations. That's why we want to cultivate good habits. And the best good habit that you can cultivate is to meditate every day regularly to the best of your ability. And to help in making that effort, read something of Masters or some SRF publication every single day for 15 minutes or even half an hour. Why should we do that? Because it fills our consciousness with these concepts of Master, these positive thoughts, which help us to overcome these negative things which we have to face all the time. And if we're not constantly putting in those positive things to overcome it and constantly meditating, where do you think we're going to go? Downhill, back into the negation. So we have to constantly work at it. So Masters pointed out several things we can do for success. Positive thoughts, throw out the negative. Dynamic will. Dynamic will means using your will. Have you ever noticed some people say, I wish I had $1 million? They know they're never going to have $1 million. And you know it too. They're not even going to do anything to try and get $1 million. They just wish they had $1 million. They won't even go and buy a lottery ticket. They just wish they had $1 million. Not that a lottery ticket is all that good of an idea, probably, considering the odds, but they won't even do that. They just wish they had $1 million. That's a wish. A wish is a desire without any effort connected with it. If you want an effort to succeed, if you have a desire you want to succeed, there has to be some effort applied to it. And if you want to get beyond just a desire and into an intention, then you have to plan what you're going to do. You have to make time and effort into it. And then you can move to the highest part, which means using dynamic will, which says, I will think and act until victory. And you refuse to accept anything else. Those are the people who succeed in whatever we're trying to do. So using that dynamic willpower, self-analysis, introspection, looking at ourselves, eliminating those things we have to eliminate. Initiative, Don't just follow the beaten path all the time. Don't just think that use upstairs here. Put it to work. You got thousands of billions of neurons up here, and they can be put to useful work. Dr. Lewis, one of the early disciples of Master, I still can remember him years ago saying, when he was sometimes talking to us, rustle those neurons. In other words, use your brains. Put them to work. Become a person who has initiative. And of course, also is necessary to have self-control. We have to have some control over what we do and how we act, or we go through all this wasting of so much energy and time. And so all of these forces can help us. And there's another force that can help us. And that force is service. Serving others. Service is a way to express love. We talk about divine love many times, or even let's just talk about love. Love is rooted in mutual service. And I would point this out to every husband and wife. Love is rooted in mutual service. Be of mutual service to each other, and you will see your love flower, because love is rooted in mutual service. And this goes even in the business world. I'm going to disguise this story a little bit, but the facts are there. One of our members, we will say, is a salesman. He has accounts that range from small to quite large. So some of his accounts, perhaps they only spend in the business he's working for $20,000 a year. He has one very large account that spends $2 million a year. Now that's the kind of account that every salesman is looking for, isn't it? That's a super account. So usually to protect such an account is a big job, because everybody's trying to get it away from you. But this man, who has been a devotee for many, many years and meditating and putting Master's teachings into practice, he has always tried to practice Master's teachings by servicing every one of his accounts, from the smallest to the highest, by giving it everything he could to make it work. He would go out of his way, spend extra time, be available at any time, follow through, make sure that his accounts were properly serviced. So what happened because of that? Making that kind of effort and giving that kind of service. He went one day to this large account, and the man who he was dealing with there told him something very fascinating. He said, "I've just come from a meeting of our board of directors, and the chairman told me I would be scared to death if we had anyone else handling our account." Why did he feel that way? Because he knew he could count on this person. He knew that person went the extra mile, did what he had to do, even though it wasn't convenient for him, to make sure that account was serviced. And because without it happening that way, his business could really suffer tremendously, because this was a very important part of their business, what he was doing for them. And without that, they could be facing failure. So he was nervous about anyone else doing it. I want him to be handling our account. So there he had this account pretty well locked up. Why? He was amazed himself, because he knew he treated everybody the same. But he treated everybody the same correctly. He did the best he could for them. And so few people go about life in that way. That is the way we should go about our lives. Always doing the best we can. So this divine will is the one factor behind all of these other points we have brought out that we have not really discussed. These other points you can see in books all over the place. But one thing that Master brought that infuses them all with new life and energy is connect them with God, with divine will. And then he said, when you meditate and make spiritual effort, then you bring divine will into your life. And divine will has no boundaries, that it works through laws, known and unknown, sometimes seemingly miraculously. It can change the course of destiny, which is to say our karma. It can wake the dead, cast mountains into the sea, create new solar systems. And each one of us, made in that image of God, can do the same. And this is what we want to do. So our highest obligation is to be in contact with that divine will and to give it everything we can. There are no limitations. There are no poverty in God. There's no poverty in God. There's no limitations in God. And we as God's children, there's no poverty and no limitations unless we allow them to happen. I remember when I'd first come in the ashram, after I'd been in several years, I began to feel very poor. Now, this was a new concept, because before I came in the ashram, I had a good job. I was making lots of money. I certainly didn't feel poor. Suddenly, I was here in the ashram, and there was no money. We got a little tiny allowance, but just to give you some idea, the allowance we got at that time, our monthly allowance, the job I had, I paid twice as much, more than twice as much income tax in 1 week. So the allowance I got for a whole month, to give you some idea of the difference. And so I began to feel poor. And man, I was watching every little penny. I got to save this. I need some toothpaste, and I got to save this. Man, I'm going to need some shoes. That's big bucks. I've got to really start saving here. And I began to take on this poor attitude. And finally, I realized what I was doing. You're constantly afraid you're not going to have enough. And so I said, okay. I remember now, Master said something about that. And in his scientific healing affirmations, what is that affirmation? I dwelt in thoughts of poverty and wrongly fancied I was poor, so I was poor. Now I am home. Thy consciousness hath made me wealthy, made me successful. I am rich. I am rich. So every time I began to feel I was poor, I would repeat that. And it was very interesting what happened. I wasn't getting any more. The allowance didn't change. But the attitude changed. And I stopped worrying about whether there was money. I said, hey, it's up to God to take care of it. I got no problems. I'm not poor. And I found out every time I needed something, it was always there. And sometimes even things you didn't need. It's a matter of changing our attitude and connecting in. Now, some of you have heard the story about the chutters. Some of you possibly haven't. But that happened sometime after I switched my attitude, and I wanted a chutter to wrap up in meditation. And the only chutters available in this country at that time were put out by another organization and had their guru's name on it, and I didn't want that. And we had gotten strict orders not to bother the monks in India to get a chutter. And so I said, well, I guess there's no way I can get a chutter. So I just gave it up. I renounced it. I said, I'll just go on, keep using a sheet or whatever. Well, it wasn't until about 2 or 3 weeks after that, I got a call one Sunday, told me, come over to the reception desk at the main building. So I went over there and I was handed a package, brown paper wrapping with my name on it. Took it back, opened it up. No clue as to where it come from, but inside was a beautiful cashmere wool chutter. I thought, gee, that's pretty nice. Because I never told anybody I wanted a chutter, and yet here it was. God knew I'd wanted one. He took care of it. And then a little while later, here comes another chutter. This was a cotton one. Now I had one for summer and one for winter. And then sometime later, I got another one. This was a silk one. Gee, now I got a fancy chutter. And I remember thinking, I thought, boy, you know, when God takes care of you, he doesn't mess around. But do we trust him to take care of us? We have to trust him to take care of us. We have to feel that he is taking care of us. So throw out thoughts of poverty. Throw them out. You're not poor. You know, in this day and age, a lot of people are worried, perhaps. The economy is, what shall we say, unsettled throughout the world. We don't know what's happening from one day to the next. Companies are downsizing. People wonder, will I have a job next week or will I not have a job? And yet if we are constantly fearful of all of these things, we merely make the problem worse, don't we? That person who's going to have the job is that person who goes on and makes himself indispensable, that person who does his very best, who puts these teachings into practice and is not afraid and not worried. And Master said, even though you have no job and you don't know where your next penny is coming from, believe everything is going to be all right and make the very best effort you can. He said if he was out of a job, and he said this during the Great Depression, back in the 30s, he said, if I was out of a job, I would go out and I would shake up this world so badly that they would give me a job just to keep me quiet. And it's that kind of determination we have to have. We cannot just give up, throw out these thoughts that we can't do it. And above all, work on spiritual growth, because that is the most important one. Not everyone can be a millionaire or a billionaire because there's only so many billions or whatever there are in the world. And so even if you wanted to and worked very hard to attain that state, it might take you 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 incarnations just to create the good karma and to learn the necessary good business practices and how to concentrate and do everything to reach the state where your karma would be such that you could attain $1 billion. But you don't need to have $1 billion or $1 million to be successful. All you need is to have whatever you need whenever you need it. If you have that, you're the most successful person around. And that is what the great masters have. If we make that kind of spiritual effort, then you get what you need when you need it. Whether it's a chutter or a meal or whatever, it's there if you need it, because the divine law is being fulfilled. So never think that you cannot have that which you need. God is the source of all power, all prosperity, and everything else. And the more that one takes and makes the spiritual effort and goes deep within, the more you're going to have success in your life. Success, Master said, is attained by making everything serve your main purpose. In other words, by focus and concentration. But what is success itself? Suppose you have health and wealth, but you have trouble with everybody, including yourself. That is not success, because you'll be miserable. Existence becomes futile if we have no happiness. Happiness is the thing that tells us whether we're successful or not. If you can be happy, learn to be happy, you are successful, because you will be happy and joyous. If you have millions of dollars and you're miserable, what good is it doing? You might as well be a donkey carrying around a load of gold on your back. The donkey can't spend the gold. It doesn't do him any good. So if you have all kinds of money and you feel miserable all the time, you're not successful at all. The person who is successful is the happy, growing person who is moving ahead spiritually and finds that his needs are taken care of because of what he is doing in seeking God and doing his outward duties. Because besides our duty to find God, we all have an outward duty to perform in this world. And we should perform that duty to the best that we are capable of. So I want to read to you something from Man's Eternal Quest. Guruji said, success is not a simple matter. It cannot be determined merely by the amount of money and material possessions that you have. The meaning of success goes far deeper. It can only be measured by the extent that you have inner peace and mental control that enable you to be happy in all circumstances. That is real success. When you can look within and your conscience is clear, your reason unprejudiced, your will firm yet flexible, and your discrimination strong, and when you are able to obtain at will the things you need and the things you consider worthwhile, you are a success. And I have noticed ever since that time, those many, many years ago, that is exactly what has happened in my life. The things I need are always there. They come in sometimes very strange and unusual ways. And so as we go on making that spiritual effort to find God, then we are going to find real success. Success is not measured by the amount of money we have or the amount of new clothes we have or any material thing. Success is measured by how close we have connected our lives to God to be able to receive God's blessing. And so our major force should be, besides that which is required to earn our livelihood, should be to every day make that spiritual effort, meditate every day. Don't let the day pass without making that kind of effort. Concentrate on the techniques. And before any important thing in your life comes up, sit in silence after you've meditated, talk to God, ask your father, mother, friend, beloved God for his blessing. Then go forth, and you will find that behind your power is God's power. Behind your mind, God's mind. Behind your will, God's will. And when God is working with you, you cannot fail. Now, one has to believe that. When God is working with you, you cannot fail. And always remember, when you do your work with the thought of serving God, you receive God's blessings. So always do that work with the thought of pleasing God. Offer it to God. Think about God. Stop and think about God when you're doing your work, because that is the way to get God's blessings. You may think, well, this kind of work, God wouldn't be interested in that. Hey, it's out there. Of course he is. But whatever the work is, through doing it, you have the chance to move ahead, to succeed, and that is what is important. And if your work in the world is humble, don't apologize for it. You don't have to. Everybody can't be president. If everybody was president, we couldn't have a show. So there's different areas in which we have. So use your human will in its most constructive form to continue to seek him no matter what obstacles arise to take you away from him. And thus you will operate the law of success. And the other thing which is most important and which should always be remembered is very, very simple, and that is keep on keeping on. Perseverance is the whole magic of success, both spiritual and otherwise. Now, I've been saying this for longer than I care to remember. I remember coming into the ashram many years ago. If there were two sad sacks in the ashram, it was Brother Achalananda and myself. I mean, we had more struggles in our early days than you could believe. I mean, we had deep struggles with moods and all kinds of problems. We'd be going around sometime, we'd meet each other, we're both seeing who can outdo the other one and how bad we're feeling. So one of the things we used to do, we'd send each other a Christmas card, and the message was always the same. Keep on keeping on. Because that's what does it. Refuse to accept failure in anything. Keep on keeping on. And if we do that, keep on keeping on, then we're going to find we're going to succeed. We cannot fail if we keep on keeping on. So it's important to remember, we are not a failure unless we say, I'm a failure. And if you have to leave this body struggling but not having succeeded, then go out that way. What did Master say? That thought, those strong thoughts you have when you leave, that to a very great extent determines your next life and where you will be in the astral world, what you'll experience over there. So that is accumulation of our entire lifetime, of all of our thoughts. We may think, oh, well, when I leave this body, I'm going to be thinking of God. But if you spend your whole lifetime doing other things and that time comes to leave the body, you're not going to be thinking of God. You're going to have too many other things to worry about. So that's why meditation is so important, so that when that time comes, we can put that attention on the divine. That's true success, to be able to do that. That's success at the most important time of life. And that success will lead us ever higher and higher and higher. So each one of you here, do your best. Keep on this path. It will take you as far as you want to go. The choice is up to each one. How far do you want to go? Apply it, and you will get there, because these teachings have behind them dynamic will. Apply your dynamic will to God's dynamic will, and you must succeed. So Jai Guru, Jai Ma, keep on keeping on, have a great week, and go back to your homes and take that $1 million smile of victory with you. And don't let anybody tell you you are not a success, because you are.
This has been a production of Self-Realization Fellowship, a non-profit organization founded by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1920. For more information about Self-Realization Fellowship and Paramahansa Yogananda, please visit yogananda.org.